Good morning. I'm actually really glad that everyone's here. So let's look around the room and see who actually made time to be here. We have technologists, we actually have officials, we have educators and students, we do have representatives from our esteemed business community, and we have people who just care about their communities. And so that's not an accident. I think you've heard that theme over and over again, but that's the nature of the exchange, and I think that's the point of it all. So this panel isn't just about innovation as a concept, and I think that's also clear. It's about whether the people can solve problems, and it's the problems that we need to solve, and to be as innovative as the communities that we serve. And if we can lift the region together as in a unison, that's a civic question as much as a technology question. You know, if you are a philosopher about this, the Dewey School of management is democracy is as much an experimental system as a political one. And frankly, it's one that we don't get to punt on, but sometimes people do too often. So Shannon touched on a real question of common concern. This region has a rare combination of world-class tech, strong public institutions, a higher education, and a primary and public schooling ecosystem that is literally producing brilliance. And so people who still believe in government and business both having a role to play is actually pretty rare. And how do we take best advantage of that? And who are the people responsible for calling each other in rather than calling each other out? And that's also rare. So what do we do with this treasure that matters? And I love setting unfairly high expectations. So you're going to hear from some brilliant people who are uncommonly good looking and speak with such vision and hope and want to do great things. And we're going to leap into a couple things, but right off the top is just some energy, and we're going to introduce people or have them introduce themselves. And we're going to go first with Arry. Anything you want to say, Arry? Just introduce yourself and your organization. Sabre did it a little bit, but anything else you want to say about yourself?
Check, check. Oh, it works. Great. Yeah, Arry, you, air, like the Arry, you know, not Arry, the Jewish man. Usually helps loosen up the crowd when I do that. I want to talk about two things. When we look at the community, that one of the big themes that have been starting out this morning was all around coming together across all our different industries and our different sectors. With the WTIA, we do a lot of economic impact reports, and so we always look at the 5 sort of pillars of economic impact: startups, investors, academia or educators, government, and industry, or we call them the incumbents. And when we do all these reports for like the quantum landscape report, we did an AI landscape report, we did a blockchain landscape report. This region is fabulous on most of these pillars, except for government. And so what we'd love to see is more of this government public-private partnerships, because I think with that orchestration, the government has the power to convene. We can really just soar. This region has so much potential if we just put together with that orchestration. And then I also want to talk about the convergence. When we talk about these different advanced technologies, we like to look at them in silos. You know, like AI is in a box over here, and we have this, you know, quantum work group over there, and you know that we talk about blockchain in a totally different room, and we assume that they never, ever, ever meet. The funny thing is, they're digital technologies. They actually do converge. And so, you know, just like people, if we can talk about these things together, coherently, as assets for the people, I think we can really make a difference.
Wonderful. All right, David, you have one of the rare partnerships with cities that shines through the ages with Sabre. Quick intro.
So first I want to thank Arry for setting herself up as the technology expert, because I do not want that role. I am not assuming that role. I will run from that role. I've been in higher education, though, in the state of Washington for about 28 years or so, and I'm passionate about the role of education in a number of ways in this space. I'm passionate about the role of education as a connector of desire and need, what people want, and then what communities need. And I'm also passionate about how higher education can be a convener in spaces that don't necessarily admit easily the large corporations, that we can invite in any number of different people and groups and individuals and bring them all together in a space that is a safe space, not in that way, but a safe space for that kind of innovation. Because I believe, and this is going to be sort of thematic in some of the answers that I'm giving today, I believe that innovation is a technology challenge, but I don't believe it's fundamentally a technology challenge. I believe that innovation is a participation challenge. And I think this is thematic throughout the day as well, that yes, a rising tide can raise all boats, but that's the challenge. And that's one of the roles that education can play in this conversation, to ensure that all boats are in the pond and that all boats are being raised simultaneously. So I'm incredibly excited to be here, and I thank you, Sabra, for all the work that you and your team do, City of Bellevue, all of the sponsors, and I look forward to the conversation.
Wonderful, thank you. And Michael, can you tell us about you and the startup you're with?
Yes, thank you, Rob. Work for this little AI startup over in Redmond. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be with you this morning. And Sabra, I actually love the intro you set up. You've got 3 generations of Seattle Chief Technology Officer here. So clearly we are a good pipeline for regionalism and for community technology.
And instability?
I'd say those email servers, they stayed up when we were all in office. Something I learned when I was the Chief Technology Officer in the city of Seattle is that the power of technology in our communities and in partnership with others truly is critical to our region's success. When I came to run an IT department, I did not realize that the Chief Technology Officer in Seattle carried a policy agenda related to how our community benefited from the technology that has helped our region grow by more than 50% in the past 20 years. And when I came into office under Mayor Murray in 2014, we had a broadband access crisis. Too many people in the city of Seattle not only were not benefiting from the digital economy, they didn't have access to the digital economy. And we had a couple options. There was a really interesting idea that the city could build out a muni broadband network at a very high cost, but perhaps a more expedient and low-risk option was to revise our policies to incent investment in our city. And as a result of that, we saw CenturyLink build a gigabit broadband network, Wave update their investments, Comcast double down on bringing higher quality service at lower costs. And from when we entered office to the time we left, broadband access went from somewhere around 80% at home to 94% over the span of 4 years. That is meaningful impact in households, in economic outcomes, in education, and so many things. And today at Microsoft, we think very similarly. Our business is best when we have healthy communities, and our healthy communities are best when we have healthy business. It's why we've made a commitment to train 100,000 educators in this state on how to use AI to create more capacity in their daily work. It's why we are partnering with cities across the region to find new innovative technology solutions to improve government service. And that's not academic. I want to thank Mayor Mo and Sabra for your leadership on the innovative uses of AI that Bellevue is leading on, and so many others. So looking forward to the conversation today of how we continue to find new opportunities to partner.
And that's an awesome kind of 1, 2, 3, because a first lightning round kind of question is, how do you take practical steps to, as an organization and in sectors, open up innovation to be accessible, both as sectors and as organizations, as companies, but also to reach more people and help them participate? We have a lot of people here. How do you set that ground, make it fertile, and create that kind of participation? Because all of us have done it in different ways, but popcorn style, who wants to pop first? Go.
I think it's rooms like this. I think having conversation, being in dialogue is where the ideas come from. So, for example, I'll stick with housing for a moment. Across our region, we've been in a conversation for the past 10 years about the housing crisis we have. The state tells us we need to build 55,000 units of housing in Washington a year just to keep up with demand. If we don't keep up with demand, then we see constraint, we see outbidding, we see prices start to increase. So if we need 55,000 units of housing a year, any guess on how many units we're actually building? 10, 25, somewhere in that region. So every year we fall farther and farther behind. If you look at the cost of a house in King County, the average cost of a house, 8% of that cost, or about $60,000 for a new unit, is not permitting, it's permitting delays, meaning the time it takes for your builder to buy the land, submit the permit, wait for it to get rejected, resubmit it, wait for it to get rejected, resubmit it. That's $60,000. If we can work together to find ways to make permits go through the first time, to give more capacity to the plan reviewers, that's a meaningful decrease in the cost that we pay for housing at a time when affordability is the #1 issue in our region. That's a government challenge, it's a private sector challenge, and technology has a role to solve it. So the more we talk about those things, the more we see really creative solutions like Bellevue is implementing, where we can come to the table and help fund and accelerate, and we can see real progress across our region.
Go ahead.
Practical accessibility. So with the WTIA, we have this thing called the Seattle AI Week. It's at the end of October, October 26th through 30. Mark it your calendars. But last year we had over 5,000 people go through the week, over 75 different events. We had a very fancy policy opening reception where the governor spoke, and we had a big summit day on Tuesday. And we believe that it's not just about technologists, putting on a show for other technologists. We've really made strides in building community and relationships with like the artist community, the creator community, just making it as accessible to people and finding things that interest people. Instead of saying like, hey, let's talk about AI, let's talk about, design, let's talk about user experience, let's talk about, writing your next book together. And so I think that is what's really important. And then another thought on that is practical advices around sequencing. Instead of just going for the 10,000 person summit on day one, you kind of have to crawl, walk, run in a lot of ways. And so we also have to do that when we engage people on this journey. There's a lot to learn. There's so much happening every week. And so doing our best to keep the community and all the stakeholders along on the journey as we go through this together.
Okay, so I'm going to say your leaders in your organizations also in community. There's some internal as well as external factors that you have to build to create the conditions for collaboration and coordination to take on the two things you just talked about, which is convenings and focused work on challenges. So how do you create those kind of cultural, structural, technical, and resource conditions for that kind of work? And how have you done that? Maybe if you can say it in two ways. How have you done that inside your organization, and how have you tried to then connect that with that collaborative work outside your organization? David?
So I think that one of the things that we've tried to be very intentional about at Bellevue College is expanding the conversation. We certainly have amazing technical programs at Bellevue College, whether it's artificial intelligence or cybersecurity, and the list goes on. But thinking about how this idea of innovation belongs to a lot broader swath of not just our campus, but a lot broader swath of our broader communities than the technical experts. How we can infuse these ideas of innovation into things like our healthcare programs, or into our business programs, or into interior design, or into the humanities and the social sciences and the arts. How does this idea of innovation play across a much broader platform? And that's relevant to your question, I think, because that creates feedback mechanisms from people who are on the front lines of these things. It becomes a system where it's not technical experts explaining a system or a platform. It becomes the people who are experiencing that platform and that system being involved in the creation of, in the feedback to those systems. And so broadening the conversation so that, and I know I'm preaching to the choir in a lot of ways, but what we're trying very intentionally to do is to create conversations that filter down from the top level of expertise to the lower levels of the user experience and how I'm dealing with innovation in my own office.
I love that. And it's creating that shared understanding of what are the things that we are all collectively working on, what are the issues our community is facing where we can make progress, and then making sure we have the trust between the institutions to lean in and partner together on innovative solutions. And I think, within Microsoft, so we have a rather large team that focuses just here on the home state in Washington. And part of that reason is we want to be that signal network. We want to be in the room, listening to the themes, the conversations, making sure our leadership understands what's going on. But when we see opportunity, or when we get the call to ask to lean in and help, to make sure that we're seen as the partner who isn't trying to sell something, that we're trying to show up and say, hey, let's have some ideas together. And I think it cuts both ways. Within the government structures, Rob, that we've worked in, when you've got the trust within the institution to say, staff can ask interesting questions. Within IT, we can have interesting ideas that aren't about checking down the boxes on a procedure document, but say, hey, there is a problem this department is trying to solve, and maybe I don't know the answer. We're trying to speed up permitting. We're trying to 2x the capacity for dealing with a human services problem. We can't necessarily try the same practices we've tried before to solve that problem. Who can we call? Who can we bring into the room? I've heard about this crazy AI idea. How do we think responsibly about a new way to use it to solve the problem in front of us? And I think that's where I have fun. That's where my team have fun. I think that's where so many of us turn out to events like this, because we have fun trusting that we can come together to problem solve together.
From the innovator's standpoint, one thing that I learned back in the day, say 2016, 17, I did one of those crypto ICOs, traveled the world, raised $32 million. And after all that, what did I learn? I learned that we actually need a lot more conversations and policy earlier in an innovator's sort of journey. It shouldn't be a downstream thought. It shouldn't be something that you do after you build your cool little product or have millions of customers. It should be something that you bring on maybe even day zero, day one in the conversation. Because especially with advanced technologies, there's a lot of change that it's going to do for people, for consumers, for our systems, for our processes, for our payments. I mean, there's so much at stake. And so one of the things that we've been really proactively doing is just getting innovators to realize the impact that they can have and should have, but only by engaging public policy and working with policymakers and actually having a person, director of industry, government affairs or community affairs, as one of your first few hires, not your 100th hire. And I think that's been a really big change. I also like to point out that the technology industry is just generally younger than most of the other industries out there. You look at insurance or the hospital, healthcare. Technologists, we're kind of new at this, and so as you may have seen, we may have been bumbling, both as startups and big corporations, and it's sort of a learning process. We're doing it in the wild, in the public eye, and I think we have to kind of look at the other side, saying like, at least they're trying, at least they're engaging in public policy, at least they're, investing in having that community relations, government relations person, because we're learning that that is so important, and we're learning as early as possible now with startups.
Actually, let me go back to the trust theme. So one of the things that we see across the country at the Center for Digital Government is this trust theme has come up over and over again, and maybe in three dimensions most often. One is teams and employees and staff need to believe that the organization is doing things in a way that's right, that we're acting in ways that we can believe in, that are moral. Another one is that communities have to believe that their institutions are doing things that are protecting them, that are in their interests. And organizations are looking to their vendor partners and saying, you're honoring your contracts, you're not betraying my trust. And you have to check all those boxes. And also when you go into community, that technology is now a values thing, not checking, as you said, Michael, kind of a checklist of are we compliant, but have we actually talked with the community what our values are, designed our systems with those values, and we're keeping kind of that compact of are we staying consistent with our values as they continue to evolve, because AI, drones, cameras, things are moving. It's not a static target anymore. When you work with electeds and you work with institutions and you work with community, how do you see that evolving? Because you have a lot of partners and a lot of things can go wrong, but to keep on trying to kind of do the things that the three of you were saying, it's a different structure and it's a different method and mechanism that we're talking about. To innovate, how do we do those things? Solve it now, please.
Well, I think it starts with something that Arry was talking about. I think that adage of sometimes going slow to go fast, I think that starting with clarity is incredibly important, and public clarity. And so I saw a survey recently of the community and technical colleges in the state of Washington, and the #1 concern around AI was ethical use. Reasonable concern. But the secondary sort of answer to that was that a lot of people in the system don't believe that the answers are coming. Not that there aren't answers out there, but that the technology is advancing faster than the answers are coming. And that's a weakening and even a breaking of trust. And so I think that there needs to be clarity, and very public clarity, around what is the mission of what we're doing. What is the vision of what are the values that we're bringing to this table, to this conversation? Because without that sort of clarity, then the question for partnership, both upward and downward, vertically as well as horizontally, becomes much, much more challenging. If we're not clear on what we're trying to accomplish and what value we're bringing, what values we're bringing to that, then a request for partnership is much more challenging. And so when Sabre says, I say yes and she says yes, it's because we've talked about our shared values. We've talked about accessibility, we've talked about equity, we've talked about access, we've talked about what we're trying to do and where those align. And so when she says, will you, I say yes. Because I know what she and what the city of Bellevue are trying to do. So I think that clarity is incredibly important.
All right, go for it.
I think when it comes to trust infrastructure, all of the technology pieces are here now. We have all the capabilities and tools to build that trust infrastructure. And I'm gonna talk about why. So like, how many people here in this room use AI daily, whether to like grammar check or, you know, see what the weather's, yeah, like we're all using AI, right? And so the future is what we call Star Wars dyads. Dyads, you know, 2 dyads. So now the dyad is between humans and AI, human AI dyad. And when you're looking at, what's an example? Like if you're writing an email, most emails are now co-authored or written with the human and AI together. I see a lot of LinkedIn posts, co-authored, written with the human and AI together. You see most white papers, writings, essays, blog posts, you name it. Most of the pieces that you see in journalism, co-authored with the human AI dyad. And so we have this opportunity to build that trust infrastructure by becoming, what's the word, coherent or legible. And so, you know, when someone is putting out an RFP, before they put out that RFP, they do some research using their AI counterpart. And they go, hey, what are the best regions for X, Y, or Z? Or who are the best contenders that might apply for this RFP? They do this research beforehand. And so what we need to do as individuals, as organizations, as government entities, as a region, is to become much more legible to these human AI dyads that are working together now. And so, and then by doing that, you can start actually building this coherence infrastructure in there, this trust infrastructure in there. And so if I say, I'm the most awesome human being in the world, well, if it's not third-party verifiable, then, I'm not that very coherent, right? But I could say, hey, I've done a lot of years with the WTIA. It's third-party verifiable. You might see it in our contracting work. You might see it on LinkedIn. You might see various posts. You might see it on the website. You might see how long I've had the email address. Like, there's different ways that the AIs out there can go out and verify this. And so we can build that trust infrastructure and build that accountability through dashboards or reporting or, work, just building towards this human AI dyad future that we're already living in.
And I think to do that, you hit the nail on the head with the trust factor.
Yes.
And there's an imperative for doing this. Just because a society or a country invents a technology doesn't mean that that is the society or the country that actually sees the benefit from it. So many of the things that we brought to fruition in this country that drove our economic development from the 1800s through today, whether it's the steam engine, electricity, we weren't necessarily the ones here in the United States to invent or to commercialize the technology. We were the ones to deploy it fast enough. And just this week, Microsoft put out a report called our AI Diffusion Report that looks at a state and county level here in the US of who is implementing AI the fastest. Guess what? Washington State is not in the top 10. Maryland, California, other states that are working hard to make sure that their public trusts in AI, that it can be used responsibly and it can be used to create economic activity instead of take it away. Those are the states that are benefiting right now. And so, Rob, going back to the construct you gave us around, how is it that we build trust based on values with our employees, with our public, our institutions, those are the important conversations to have if we are going to see the benefit here in Washington. And Shannon, you set it up for us nicely to say, if we do that, that's how we continue to attract the companies we saw in that video. In government, maybe I'll just give one example. Having been there myself, we gotta find ways to say, you know what, there is so much benefit we can have to our public, that so many things we could do every day to improve service, to improve lives, that having a piece of technology that gives us a couple extra hours is a good thing. And it's not going to replace a job, it's going to allow us to have even greater impact on the things that in mission-driven service we care about so much. One of the first organizations to implement Copilot, or an AI tool at scale, was Texas Department of Transportation back in 2023. And they did a study. They had a third party come in and say, out of our pilot users, there are about 200 of them at all levels of DOT. And they came back and said, on average, an employee gained 2 hours of productivity a week. And there are extremes there. Certainly the people who are out doing maintenance work, saved a bit of time in filing reports and getting analysis of the asset they were working on versus the information worker that saw a bit more. But I want to give the example. I saw Bart Treese is in the room from the UW Mobility Lab. And one of the interesting and innovative examples that Bart and his team are leading to build trust is digital twinning. They have put sensors all over the I-90 floating bridge so that they get information on how that bridge is performing in rain, in cold conditions, in hot conditions. And that data is helping them to predict maintenance needs for the bridge. It's helping to predict what types of investments would help extend the life of that asset. And now as we see light rail trains running across that bridge to have a baseline of data to see how the bridge is now performing differently with those trains, could be huge. It could delay a replacement of the bridge by years or decades, saving billions of dollars. And that's the type of trust that, because we have partners like the University of Washington, working with Washington State DOT, building trust, trying new things, is adding real value.
All right, I'm going to try to splice two things as we get to our final two questions, just in the interest of time. I'm going to ask the people to bring up the poll question. It's the second thing on the slide as I ask the next question. So focus is a superpower. You can't do everything, and collaboration, even Amazon had this saying, is you can have so many ideas you can kind of kill the organization. So how do we not kill collaboration and get our focus on the right things? We don't invest in technology so that we can have more systems and more people. We invest in technology and innovation so that we can solve problems, so that we can solve housing insecurity, so that we can solve homelessness, so that we can have safer, cleaner communities. How do we create the focus we need to do the things we need to be that more vibrant, more successful community that creates opportunity for everyone in the ways that are very Washington, very Seattle, very Bellevue, and just for everyone's, I have a joke with Sabra. Seattle is the suburb of Bellevue on its side, but how do we create the focus that we need, and that we're all going to say this is the direction we're going, because success is clarity, commitment, and urgency. And you guys can do the poll with the mentee link on it. There you go. So while you do that, they're going to share their wisdom. How do we create the focus we need? Don't read that. How do we create the focus that we need?
That's good, because I can't read that.
I think we create the clarity and the focus we need by a shared sense of the challenges facing our region. I think Bellevue does this so incredibly well in terms of who they bring into the room to listen and to be responsive. as we also see from our organizations like the Puget Sound Regional Council getting together last week to talk about here are the themes that are going to shape the next year of our work. So I think how we continue to take those conversations and build on them and bring more people that have the tech knowledge into the room. And I especially am thankful for Bellevue College and all the organizations out there skilling that will help give people more ideas to solve those issues, as well as folks like WTIA who convene our tech community and help explain to them how they can be helpful.
Okay. I think I've just been on so many different like AI work groups, for instance, and so I think one thing that's really important for us is we have all of the right assets here. I think Shannon was really great at talking about all of the great assets with space and clean energy and life sciences. I mean, 5 Nobel Peace Prize winners and 59 physicists, and like, it's just, in some people's eyes, obscene the amount of resources that we have here in this region. But what we don't really have yet is this like orchestration layer, this ecosystem connective tissue. And I would encourage that people just show up. Like a lot of, you've heard the saying, the world is led by those who show up. Like show up and build trust through that relationship and that eye-to-eye contact and shaking hands and breaking bread together. And then look for and amplify and bring people that are co-creators, not extractors. I know a lot of people come to these work groups and they're like, oh, what can I get out of this? I'm gonna make all these connections, which is great, but also like, what value am I gonna bring and what am I going to do and what task am I gonna take away and what can I do for our community? And so I think if we can all look out for that together as a community, I think we'll all benefit.
So I'm gonna maybe state the obvious here. This conversation is how we continue this. This is how we build trust. This is how we build shared understanding. This is how we invite more people into the conversation. And Matt, you brought up what Microsoft is doing and is doing on my campus in terms of helping educators understand how we can cross that divide that people are concerned about with ethical implementation and AI usage. That's partnership. That's partnership at a level that really, really matters. Not that Copilot doesn't matter, but when we're talking about working at really ground levels together and breaking bread and sharing conversations and asking difficult questions and giving difficult answers to each other, that's how we do this. And so this is what we do. And then we take this and we go have it in other communities, in other rooms, in other places with other people, and we diffuse this idea that it's not something that's happening to us. It's not something that's happening to communities, to employees, that it's something that we are doing together. And I think if we can come to understand that we have crossed a very important bridge together.
Can I just add one more thing?
Sure.
And what we can do together, each one of us, it doesn't matter what title or where you're from, we can all help increase the legibility of our region and the organizations we care about for, remember, the human AI dyad. So after this, post about it, send out pictures, write thank yous, write blurbs, write blog posts, engage press. Like the more legible we are digitally, the higher the profile we have for this region. Like the more we are going to be amplified and the better for all of us.
Okay, last question. So technology, talent, community is the theme. Technology and technical infrastructure, really valuable, but relationships compound. So what's the last most important ongoing thing that you're leaving this room with and the commitment to the community and the ask that you have of everyone in this room? So commitment and ask. This wasn't on there, so if you see the perplexed look on their face, I just made this one up.
This is deep before the second cup of coffee. Arry, go.
Sure. My commitment, you can probably see I'm a nerd down and all the way through, and so I will keep showing up with my earnest, just put myself out there, heart and brain, and if you ever want to talk or chat or trade notes, come up with ideas. I'm always up for it. And then the other thing that I would ask is, think about what we can do with the tools that we already have at our fingertips. Most of you, I can't say all, most of you are already using it. You can already do so much just to help our city, your organization, yourself, our region, again, be more legible to the human AI dyads, and that'll help with trust building, the trust infrastructure, and the more that we can be coherent as a city, right? Like, I can say I'm awesome, but if I can't third-party verify, then it's not really that useful. So like, look for third-party verifiable things, claims that you can put out there and digitally document them.
David?
So I would echo a lot of that Bellevue College stands ready to partner with everyone and anyone where it makes sense. And so that's my commitment to the broad swath of communities that are represented here. A very big and very enjoyable part of my job is having those conversations and sitting down. And if I can't do what we need to do together, we all know people, and maybe we can find other connections, and I can serve that role. The ask is, if you haven't been to Bellevue College, if you don't know about Bellevue College, find out about Bellevue College. This is not a competition, but we are Bellevue's college. We are the East Side, one of the East Side's really anchor institutions committed to community vibrancy. We are offering world-class education. And if you want to come visit, I will get us a golf cart and we'll go on a nice tour. I will get you that second cup of coffee as necessary.
Thank you.
But the ask is to learn about what we're doing over in Southeast Bellevue, just north of Factoria, just north of Eastgate. We're tired of being the best kept secret in Bellevue. So come visit, come learn.
And then share about it online.
100.
Michael?
Love it. It's such an important intersection, Rob, as I think about the three concepts that you've articulated today: the technology, the talent, and the community. We're at a moment where there is a new industrial revolution taking place with the new technology, AI. It's not the first time we've done this in humankind. It's not going to be the last time, but it's something that we're all grappling with right now. And inherently, this is a talent question. How does this technology serve and help people? How do people adjust to using it? How do our institutions benefit from it? And that's the community impact. So at Microsoft, while we think about this question globally, we are absolutely committed to our home state and our home region. And we think there is so much opportunity for us to be on the front foot. It is, as we mentioned before, why we are training 100,000 teachers to have the capacity to lead better in their classroom. It is why we're partnering with schools like Bellevue College to come up with innovative ideas of the way AI can benefit. And so I think my ask would be, in this room, recognize the leadership roles you play in your workplace, in your governments, and elsewhere, to say, you know what, this is happening, and we will find ways to use this technology responsibly. We will find ways to make sure that we see the benefit in our community. We will follow the lead of Bellevue in showing that we can use AI in a way that builds trust in community in incremental manners with policies and the approaches that give people the space to try new ways of doing work. We will make sure in our communities that we tell the stories on social media and elsewhere that said, you know what, you did get your permit 2 months faster, and we were using new technology and we used it responsibly. Here's how. And I think Mayor Wilson over in the suburb of Seattle put out a very good blog post about suburb of Bellevue, excuse me, explaining how she is driving that in her administration. And lastly, the community, I think that there's room for workforce development. I saw it was the second highest ask there. You know, how do we give people the skills they need to be successful right now? You know, we at Microsoft offer a number of free online skills, and happy to get that information to anyone who wants to take those courses or make it available to your communities. But we also have room to that continued partnering. Rooms like this, the ask I would have is bring the questions, bring the challenges. Let's focus then on the offer of solutioning together to say how it is that this region can lead in both the diffusion of AI, but also in solving the critical challenges we have got to address if our region is going to remain competitive.
Okay, so let's wrap up in 2 ways. One is we heard a couple things. We're saying we're going to be relentless about our region's success and keeping trust. And number two, about calling people in and not calling people out and creating those resources. And so I'm going to call an audible here and actually allow folks to ask a question or two. Because Sabre said there were 2 mics around, and we have such great expertise, and it fits the theme. And so we're going to share. But does anyone have any questions? Because we just did talk about committing and asking. Does anyone have any questions of this? I see people waving their hands. Okay. See one back there. Any questions of our audience, because we have such brilliance on the panel?
Hey, Rob, can you do the stand-up question for the folks running the slide deck? Advance it maybe 2 or...
Yes. All right, so Sabre really liked this question. So we're going to get some energy in the room. Stand up if you believe the Pacific Northwest has what it takes to be a national model for equitable, community-driven AI. Yes. Now, here's the hard part. Stay standing if you think we're actively doing it today. And not just talking about it. All right? To those still standing, what do you think we're doing that the rest of us should know about it? Just raise your hand, and I'll call on someone to say, give us an example of something that is remarkable, because we want to distinguish, is it just faith that we're awesome? Or are we doing things that are pretty amazing? So we'll call 2 people. See a person over there. Shout it out. What's something amazing that we're doing that's innovative and collaborative? Yes, you that just pointed to yourself. All right, cool.
Woohoo!
Right there. Yeah. Oh, go for it.
Yeah.
I recognize you, John.
Hi, Rob. Yeah. Well, we have a great digital equity learning network here in the region that is doing a lot of great work. So come see me or Catherine. We'll tell you about it.
Hey, Catherine.
Awesome,
Right, awesome.
thank you.
All right, cool.
I'm going back to the original question. Thank
All right,
you for
cool. Thank
letting
you,
me
everyone.
derail you, Rob.
You just got a dose of energy. Oh, go ahead. All right.
Hi, hey, I'm David Hunter with
David?
Worldwide Technology. I just
This
want
is
to
David, everyone.
thank you. I want to thank Michael, David, and Arry, and of course you, Rob, on this wonderful, I can call it a fireside chat. One of the things that Michael talked about was AI, education, and community outreach, right? And we partner with Microsoft at Georgia State University to teach educators in the public school system there in Atlanta. And I'm looking at ways to maybe rinse and repeat that. I love the collaboration with with Bellevue College. By the way, my cousin, Marisa Huweller, you both know her pretty well. Yeah. Can we expand that to like CDU or some other higher education institutions in this area?
That'd be awesome. They're on the hook right now in front of everyone looking for a yes.
Yeah, I love that. Finding replicable models is something that we get to do through events like this, where we hear what has been working elsewhere and we can bring to new locations. Would love to learn more about what's working so well in Georgia and see how that works here. And also just even maybe, I'm not sure if there will be notes coming out of this, if we could capture what that model looked like so others can learn from it. And whether it's with us or with others, would love to make sure we're getting more communication, more partnership out there.
And David, we'll commit to putting on the Center for Public Sector AI too as a case study.
Great.
Golf cart.
David, do you want to talk about it too? Or?
No, I would just echo all of that, that if we can find a model that works, let's have that conversation and let's find ways to make it happen.
Okay, apparently I have one more minute for another question.
Right here. I guess today's a David day.
Hey, David.
And David on the screen, on the stage, spoke about clarity of target. I think that this question is for Michael because I love so many of your posts tie back to where Shannon led us, and that's talking about the healthy communities as the ultimate alignment target. David, could you share some of the ways that, we can talk about housing, we can talk about AI governance, we can talk about transportation, but at the end of the day, it feels like we are really trying to build communities where people thrive together. And we know there's a lot of data that shows we're not going in that direction. So talk about how some of these lines, it's an alignment question. Thank you.
And it's also a 45-second question, and so I thank you for that. But catch up with me, and I'm happy to expand and have more conversation around this. One of the pillars of the strategic plan at Bellevue College is vibrant communities, because Bellevue College is not just a workforce pipeline. What we are is a community vibrancy pipeline, because it's not just about people who are going to stay in Bellevue and work. It's about people who are going to stay in Bellevue and Bellevue and the broader region and be part of those communities, who are going to be on park boards or on school boards, who are going to be on advisory boards for corporations and businesses and higher education. It's about helping people understand that they own where they are, that the place matters not just because it's where they get their paycheck, but because it's where their family lives, where they're raising their children, where they are taking care of their parents. So that idea of community vibrancy and healthy communities goes far beyond this sort of, we're educating people to be part of a workforce. We're educating people who are going to be part of community, who are going to be part of democratic institutions, who are going to be part of social institutions. And that's my 48-second answer.
All right. So please join me in saying thank you to Dr. May, Arry, and Michael.
While you're coming off the stage, hang on to your microphones. We have one last question that I committed to. Do you have a loud voice?
Oh, we got one more question.
Hi, sorry to keep you, but my name is Nyambura Sidio Samamish, as well as a resident of Bellevue. My question is to Dr. May. Dr. May, you talked about how Bellevue College is doing a lot of extensive work in the community in working with the different cities. My question is, are you working with schools, like high schools? Because I feel like the challenge is the youth are getting to high school and they do not know where AI is going to support them or where it's headed to and how to pick their career pathways.
So real quickly, because I know we're out of time, the short answer is Dr. Aramaki was in my office yesterday and we were having some of those very conversations about how we help students in high school conceptualize pathways into post-secondary education in ways that they may not. And not only that, but how we can partner with K-12 education and with the city of Bellevue to think about how we provide supports for that. So yeah, those conversations are very much, we're knocking on those doors every day together, and we're going to find ways to open them.